Welcome to Reality Test. I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Dr. Kay. Feel free to check in, take a seat, sit wherever you like, in fact, because we're heading on back down to talking about, which I don't know if it's down, wherever they are, for Ultimatum, Queer Love, Season 2, Part 2. So episode 6 to 10. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Welcome back. It's been a wild ride with these ladies. Ladies and potentially non-binary folks, too. We don't actually know for sure everyone's pronouns. That might be a growth edge for the show.
Yeah, I was thinking
more
about that, too.
Yeah, because it seems like Kyle maybe is non-binary.
Right. I was going to blow my nose quickly, but this actually came up with one of my clients, or one of the clients I work with and have worked with for quite a long time, almost 10 years, in fact. And they and I were having a whole conversation about this, they having not watched, actually, I think they just listened, but listened, not just. I think they listened to our episode they listened to it. They listened to our episode, which was awesome. And then they shared with me about it. And I thought this was just such an important point that, ultimately, we didn't use they pronouns we didn't say they for Kyle, but we did say that that Kyle seems more non-binary than the other people do, which is true. They do seem that way, but that's in presentation. And also because, like you mentioned, too, they were excited about fiance being gender non-binary as a term. And so then that got the client that was in my work and I talking about this idea of gender expression being something that is more akin to something like symbolic race, where symbolic race is where we talk a lot about how racial identity is what the person is both based on real or whatever genetic or DNA background, but then also based on how they identify. So they might identify more one way than the other based on a trauma with one part of the family, blah blah blah. So or they might identify as multiracial, but their brother doesn't, whatever. So there's that piece of it, which is the most important part. But there's also something called symbolic race, which is how society thinks your race is. What does society think you are when they look at you? And oftentimes it's ambiguous is one example. Or some people look black but actually have more percentage of a different race or whatever. So there's that kind of a symbolic race piece, which is important because of colorism. And so the way that people treat you based on how light-skinned you are is a big factor in the prejudice against your oppression and marginalization. So it is still important to think about symbolic race, even though that's only one small piece of the puzzle, really, when you think about how big of a puzzle there is. So then we were thinking about that in terms of gender expression, too. I was that reminds me of symbolic race because with gender expression, there are differences in how people are treated based on how they present. Kyle does present somewhat gender neutrally or gender non-binary, but doesn't mean that they identify as such. Which then also brought me to this point, which goes back to your original point, which is that I also get skeptical about this at Netflix shows because there's always a part of me that's does this person feel like they would use they pronouns if they felt like Netflix would handle it sensitively? Or do they feel safe even telling Netflix they use they pronouns? So it's what are the boundaries of what Netflix is able to handle in terms of some things like that, and gender diversity, gender identity, that would make me feel I'm always a little bit, I would never assume that they identify or use they pronouns, but it does make me wonder if we're seeing only part of the picture. Maybe also because Kyle has family that doesn't know, and so then Kyle doesn't want to disclose at that big of a level or whatever, or thinking about future jobs or whatever it might be. So I just always get a little skeptical of that. So they maybe do use they pronouns even though they didn't on the show, but we don't know that for sure.
Right. It's for example, if my primary care office doesn't ask about my sexual orientation, I might not tell them that I'm bisexual. I might. They might figure it out anyway, but they might not, right? And it's the questions that also, whether or not someone asks me that question tells me some things about them and how they see my health, how they see me as a person. And so maybe if Kyle's getting weird vibes from Netflix about some of their identities, then, maybe they're more or less likely to disclose.
Yeah.
That's such a cool client,
exactly.
Or that's such a cool conversation you had with your client. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, too. Also a cool client, for sure. Very cool client, very cool conversation. It was really nice, yeah. I'm loving that, be able to have that dialogue, in part because our other listeners, which thank you all so very much, but don't really give us very much feedback, so we don't really always know, how things are landing. Or in that moment, I felt like I had made a mistake by not saying, this is just how they appear, not, and I hadn't said that they are non-binary, but I said they seem more so, but in a way that I was talking about presentation, but I didn't make that super explicit, so that's really helpful, so that's feedback for me to be able to say, I apologize also to Kyle if I misrepresented how they appear, even in terms of how they feel. And I think I maybe even said it about the two of them, because the two of them sort of collectively seem more critical of the binary to me. as like their views, their viewpoints, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything about how they identify, which is a great point. So I loved it. It was a great conversation. Really helped me with thinking about some of those pieces that I get really used to talking about presentation because of symbolic race being a concept. It made me realize that sort of has gotten me sort of like more, ironically, kind of like looser in terms of thinking about how people present. Because that's a huge part of the queer theory and gender diversity dialogue is not making presumptions, or assumptions, not being presumptuous about people's gender based on how they appear, or their sexual identity based on how they appear, or their racial identity based on how they appear. So it's sort of like I've gone so far in that direction that I've come back around, you know. It's like, so it was a good reminder to sort of like, yeah, being even clearer when I'm saying, like, I assume we're all, in other words, I assume we're all on that page. We all know that, and so we're back around it thinking about just what is their presentation, gender expression. So I should be explicit about it in this context.
And I'm sorry, too, because I was doing the exact same thing. So I appreciate your client bringing that up, and, yeah, and for us to be mindful.
You said this. Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, I just jumped in because I couldn't handle you saying taking anything on deck, because you also did say that you were like, yeah, at least Kyle, because Kyle brought up the fiance being a good gender neutral term, and so I think you were really attending to the fact, at least the fact that I was lumping together Bridget and Kyle too, which I think was a great point. So I don't know, we're all in this together, and we're all just doing our best, and I appreciated being able to talk about with a client with whom I work, and then therefore with you, and therefore with anyone wanting to listen to this part of our conversation, because gender expression and gender identity are important. I also would mention that I like sort of flippantly related to, God damn it, Pilar, to Pilar's race as Asian, and Pilar is Asian, and I had like, I don't know if I looked it up or if I like really did hear in the first conversation. I could have sworn she brought it up in one of the early conversations during dating, but I was like so certain, so it just like came out of my mouth. But like I had the memory, and I had written in my notes for the dating scene, Asian families, thinking about like difficulty disclosing. So I don't know, in either case, I couldn't remember the exact data point, so I should have made sure I knew that from some data point before I just like blew into that conversation. But talking about symbolic race, if it was just that would have been bad, but it wasn't. There was a data point. I just don't know where it came from. Either I looked it up or it was in the thing. But there's another good reminder. It's like we are also, like, whether it's about race, gender identity, sexual identity, these kinds of pieces are important when we're talking about some of these shows, regardless of whether they're about queer identity. But I would say more important when it comes to queer identity, and why is that? You know, like it shows a lot about actually marginalization and oppression, that it becomes more important to talk about in queer media because there's more expansiveness, but also more prejudice and oppression of different identities in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Just going to go on a little bit of a diatribe there. Welcome back. I'll get stand off my soapbox.
I love when you get on your soapbox. It is a great soapbox to be on.
Thank you so much. I'm such a try. I definitely really appreciate that these are the conversations we're having. Like, that makes me really happy. And I don't know that that's one of the things that's really, like, highlighted in a lot of other podcasts about reality TV, so I like that can be a draw, ideally, of ours. Would be for me.
Yeah. The idea of symbolic gender, I really like that as a way of saying that. So you and your client co-created something really cool.
I know, and I kept saying that to them too. I was like, I haven't heard this, but like that's what it makes me think of. And I also was thinking about how like why I wouldn't bring that up in other contexts is because I wouldn't want to co-opt a racial conversation to either be about gender or a racial term to become a gender term. But I was thinking about how minority stress over time got expanded from sexual identity only to also gender identity and now to racial identity. And so maybe over time it could sort of become a little more fluid and also be applied. Because I agree, there's something about that is just not, you know, it's just so relevant to this very pocket right here that I feel like it would be interesting. It would definitely have to be thinking about it with the author, who I think is Maria P.P. Root. She was the one who first at least introduced me to symbolic race, and so I would, you know, want to be expanding on it with someone of color who also found it important, who's also, for example, a marginalized gender identity too. So, yeah, I do think it's an interesting way to go. I kept being like, I haven't heard this, like, this is a thing, and then I just confused them a little bit, but then eventually we're like, right, it's the point is the literature hasn't talked about this, but this is a thing that is, like, a parallel worth noting, that exists in, like, a nuanced, not labeled way, untitled.
The closest I feel like the culture, I shouldn't say the culture like that, I think that's co-opted Black language too. The closest that I've heard the literature get to like addressing symbolic gender is like the whole AFAB, AMAB thing that's happening now, which I actually don't love. Like, the first time I heard that, I didn't like it, and here is why I didn't like it. I didn't like it because it kind of centers someone's sex that they were assigned at birth. In a way that I find kind of weird, and I felt like it became this term that was like the hip new term, and I'm like, I don't love it, and I feel like doing that is not. I feel like symbolic gender is a little more maybe what people are trying to get at with that, but it does still feel sticky and messy because of passing privilege and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot to this for sure.
Yeah, I really like that point because I've also felt sort of like about like I haven't adopted it myself as language I use. I have always felt a little bit like, ooh, maybe that's just not for me because it's not for my generation, or maybe it's more like, and I like how you put that. It centers biological sex in a way that we're trying to move away from. I think was the idea there.
Right.
So maybe there's a way. If it's like we don't want to erase the importance of biological sex, that's fair, right? That's the part where it's sort of like maybe use both or something, but maybe putting it central is less appealing to me. Essentially, for sure, it is. To me, at the very least, I'm sure to many people. And to us, at the very least, I should say. But yeah, I think the other thing it's close to is gender expression. I really do think that that's part of it. Is like how does it present to you, or like thinking about Judith Butler's stuff on like present performative gender performativity. It's also like that too. We'll think of it. We're gonna tie something together over the years and figure out a theoretical concept for that.
More noodling. More noodling, as you love to say.
I do love to noodle. So, I really love this. I think we're like breaking new ground, as I mentioned. But I also, speaking of breaking new ground, would like to share with everyone that we have reached and now surpassed 100 episodes of our fine little humble podcast here.
We did it.
Come, reality test. Come with us. Let's reality test.
Retest. I haven't done that song in a while.
I know. You don't really listen to it's like because I make the videos, I hear it all the time, but I also, yeah, you're right. That's like when you don't, you're not doing that, you might not be hearing it as much. It's a delight. I will also say that we have now gotten to 101, but the reason we decided to talk about it now is because after this episode, we're going to take a wee break over the summer of August, that we're giving ourselves August or the summer months off. I think we were talking about 2 or 3 weeks off at least, but that would mean maybe the 3rd or 4th week of August would have an episode. So I'm thinking more like 4th week of August or beginning of September, probably. Which we hope you all take a little break for yourselves as well, obviously, not just from us, but just from anything that's involving needing to podcast if you're commuting or something like that. August tends to be a good summer vacay, at least for psychologists. It's classically so. So take a little break and we'll come back. I'm going to be doing some things to think about, like other kind of like not products so much as like marketing, not even that though. It's like other ways that we can help. So we were talking about, for example, applying, I had just brought up that I applied the central relational paradox to Huda from Love Island. And so thinking about like other things like that are of interest to people. And then things like that. But otherwise, we're just going to be taking a wee break. So we'll be back later at August, early September. I'm just repeating myself now. In the meantime, what a gift and what a true joy to have done this for 100 episodes with you, dear Dr. Ray, and with you all listeners. It has truly been a light during a really tough year of academic work and society.
Yeah, this is so much fun, and I look forward to continuing to do this with you. And I hope y'all will put some money in our pockets because, we are doing this for free. So we would love, we love to do this, and we would love it even more if you paid us. Was that too crass?
No, that's fair. It does make it more like sustainably lovable, like lovable long term, if we can, be able to sustain it financially. And I think that's a piece of where it's like, even though I did like slip up and say products, it is kind of a product thing too. It's like, what can we offer y'all on Spotify, not Spotify, it's okay, on Patreon that makes it appealing? It's not just the videos, the full length videos. That said, the full length videos are on patreon.com/realitytest. If you want to create an account with us, you can make a free account and see something. And then you can get a full account for $5 a month. Anybody, anytime, anywhere, you get $5 a month. You'll get a shout out on the pod and a free maybe year of membership, depending on if you're in this like a little raffle of just one, you'll probably get it.
Unless you don't want a shout out. If you don't want a shout out, we don't have to give you. If that's hindering you, you do not have to get a shout out.
However, point. You don't have to
please specify. Yes. If you want a shout out, don't say anything. If you're like, I really don't want one because you're shy or something, that's fine.
Yep. And you can use your username or you can use a name in some way. You're able to privately message us through that. And also, once you're a member, you can see our full videos, full length videos. And then also there are other products throughout the whole history of the feed there that you'll see, like videos that are informative. There's one called Dr.s Kay's Rant, Dr. K Rant, about Dorit and PK. There's some fun things to be found there. And then that's the other thing that I'll focus a little bit more on in August, is thinking about like how to use some of our more like expertise areas in terms of fueling some things that would be interesting and unique to have on our Patreon.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And we love y'all so much that we know we have some loyal listeners, and we're grateful for you. And yeah, I'm grateful to be able to do this with you, Dr. K. It's been really fun. And
it really has.
It's just
even if the friendship, our friendship is,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go first. You go first. Mine might be different. You say yours.
Mine was, it's just nice to have a space to like put my energy in takes, because I watch so much reality TV, and it's just fun to talk about it with someone whose brain I respect so much. So yeah, it's been a joy.
That's really sweet. I was going to say that their brain functions similarly. Like, we're both fast processors, and so we're sort of just like riffing off each other quickly about certain things. And I love that we've gotten to know each other so much through this. It's been, even if your friendship was like the type of payment, then that is one that's worth it. It's been a joy and treasure and a pleasure. A joy, a treasure, and a pleasure, I say. And I also would note that I think you're right about using our brains. Like, we're watching these shows, and I often think to myself, wow, like, which is why this is an item in one of our things. It's like, wow, I feel like everyone should be talking about this, because it's like wild how certain things are so egregiously XYZ. So it's nice to be able to have a place that we can talk about it, even if it's without people listening. But you're right that we do have some loyal listeners. For example, we seem to have always had people calling or like listening from Paso Robles in California. So thank you to that faction of friends. What it's like. And then we also have a bunch of different countries represented through this and YouTube, through Spotify and YouTube, so, and Apple or whatever. Thank you so much for that. So we are glad to be continuing down this road with you in the next 100 episodes. And today for the 101st, we were just going to do a quick abbreviated check-in of sort of like, since this is part 2 for this segment of sorts, of like, hey, how you doing? What's up, Dr. Ray? Instead of what's on your heart.
How I'm doing, what's up? Do want to acknowledge there's been a lot of news this week. I just remembered we had mentioned this. So for my check-in, I'm going to talk about Janae and Kenny and that breakup that we.
Thank you for saying that.
I first of all, he fucking sucks, and I have to say that you and I called this shit. You could just tell he doesn't fucking like her. And apparently, unfortunately, she found some racist texts, and he was saying he was just with her for clout, which anyone could see that was true, but it sucks that she had to see it that way, and that
do you think she could tell?
I don't think so.
Before? I don't either.
So, and it seems like maybe friends were skeptical at first, but kind of got on board, or I don't know. It seems like everyone just kind of got on board with his bullshit. It just sucks.
A lot of fans did. A lot of her fans did eventually, for example, too. Like, got on board over time.
Yeah, he got to quit his job and become an influencer. Good luck sustaining that, my friend.
He kind of just got canceled, dude.
Yep.
Wow.
As he should.
It's so sad. Sad. Yeah, really, as he should. And so sad for Janae.
And it's just putting my feelers out for, like, Love Island now has this format where there's, like, the girl gang that everyone falls in love with. And the guys, as we saw with Amaya, seem to like to benefit from that. And so it makes me a little nervous. Like, what's going to happen there in the future, how this is going to play out, and how we should watch for guys who are glomming themselves onto these women for clout.
Barnacles.
I don't want.
Barnacles.
Yes, barnacles. Barnacles that they can do better from. But
barnacle boys. And then, did you say, so you're referring to Amaya and Brian, did I hear that they also broke up?
Yes, which I'm actually glad about. I would rather that than them to drag it out for a year or something.
Yeah, even a month was what I sort of guessed, and it's not even that. I mean, we also called that one out. Like, he just seemed to be a little bit annoyed by her, or like she looked better than her in some moments where it was like really clear just with his eyes. So I'm glad that they moved on too.
Yes, for the best. Thank you, Brian, for at least being genuine with, and not staying with someone who would have gotten you more likes, frankly, if she's not for you. But yeah,
and also
what about
for
you,
being
Doc?
kind enough to stand up for her that one time. And I wasn't even the bigger thing. I wish he had said, we say mi amor, we say mi vida, but then I wish he had also said, and we also have a stronger emotional. We are stronger emotionally expressed in terms of emotional expression. I wish he had also said that, because that was really the bigger piece of cultural too, and that never got brought up on the whole show. It's wild to me.
Yeah.
So although I like that he brought up some support of her, I wish he'd taken that little extra step there. Would have been a big deal. So whatever. Anyway, critiquing after the fact, Monday morning armchair quarterbacking. So just like that.
Good to do. Good to do so we can grow.
Yeah, we're all going for that quarterbacking.
That's all. I think that's the main news that I saw. Yeah. But what else was that? I feel like there was something else that I'm forgetting now, but oh well. Oh, Sydney Sweeney and her jeans, but that's not the Bravo verse. Have you heard this?
No.
Oh my God. It's like a whole fucking, look up this cringe ass American Eagle jeans commercial. People are saying it's giving eugenics vibes. And then there's been parodies of it, and then this was upsetting, because I was fine with Sydney Sweeney. I think she's a good looking gal making her way in the world. But it turns out she is a registered Republican, so people found that after this. And so now Donald Trump has come out in support of Sydney Sweeney and her jeans commercial, which feels very concerning, honestly. It's really kind of gross in a lot of ways. Yeah. Now the president is stamping approval for what is now being perceived as a eugenics commercial. And it's just, it's getting weird and bad. I don't know. Yeah. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this whole thing, because it's strange. Yeah. Impact versus intent, all of that stuff. And sucks that she's a Republican. Damn. Didn't know that about her. Kind of a bummer.
That sucks. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's also a potential, did we know she was registered this year? Or is it standing over from previous years potentially?
I think it was 2024, so just last year.
Yeah, yeah.
So probably for the election.
Maybe she was and just didn't have time or something. But then that's also not great. It shows a lot of privilege either way too. So yeah, that's a real bummer. That's a bummer either way. And I would say the commercial, that's something you have to do your research on. And then if it comes out and it turns out you made that mistake, come out and make a public apology, or ask for it to be taken down, or even if you are a Trump supporter or Republican, this is an area where it should be less polarized. This should be if it's about eugenics, it needs to come down. It needs to be talked about. It needs to be apologized for on her part. If it was impact versus intent, then she should talk about her intent behind it. Did she apologize? Am I missing something here?
Nope. No. Not that I've seen.
That makes it so much worse.
Yep.
Bummer.
Fucking sucks.
Boo.
I know.
I agree. I liked Sydney Sweeney too, so that's a bummer.
I think that's the main three that I've had, but I feel like there's something else in my mind, but I'm forgetting it. So
wasn't she in White Lotus this first season? Maybe or something? Wasn't she the sister? But she counts for our universe.
Yeah, and she was funny in it. She was the mean girl liberal reading Kant or something by the pool. Yeah. It was funny. Her whole shtick was funny. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I liked it.
Or no, she was reading Nietzsche, wasn't she? I think she was reading Nietzsche. Something just so college. It was
dark philosophy. Yeah.
Yeah. Love that for you, Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, exactly. So edgy. So edgy, smart, intellectual of you. The other thing I was going to say was that, it's surprising she was in such a liberal, although I guess that's the point of White Lotus, is to kind of make fun of liberals, but she's in such a liberal show for somebody who's not, potentially. I guess she could be liberal-ish within the Republican area, but no.
You vote for Trump, in my opinion, that's just a different animal. But
I agree.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good news. Those are all good things. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I totally forgot that I said we'd come back to that about Kenny and Donna and how sad and distressing that is. Did you see, are you watching the After the Sunset, what the fuck is it called? Are you watching that other one, After the Villa?
I am. I haven't seen the most recent. It's not that good, but I'm trying.
No. Yeah. I will say I think the most recent was the best one so far. Still wasn't great, but it had some bits and bobs in it where I was like, this is the kind of shit I do actually want to see. Like you can tell every scene, you're sort of wondering like, why did they think this is what we want to see from them? You know, like that's my thoughts. Like every time I'm like, why this or what that? And most of the time you're like, right, like Aaron and Connor are friends because no one wants to be friends with them. So like now they're friends so they can be on the show, like stuff like that. But there have been some moments, so those make it really hard to get into. I find it very artificial and brutal because of that. But this last episode, like we saw Aaron and Taylor like actually reconnect in like a really kind of touching, weird way. And then we saw the scene between Kenny and Janae where they're answering questions live, where they're all questions about what Kenny knows about Janae. And he even chose that bracket of questions. Like we said, yes, let's do that one. And didn't know most of it. It was so embarrassing and awful to watch. And she even says, like, why am I getting pissed right now? Like, this is, at the end of it, like, because he sucks and he doesn't know you.
I did see that episode, and I agree. I thought the Taylor Aaron stuff was interesting, and but yeah, I thought for some reason there was another one since then, but maybe I am caught up. Who fucking
one comes out tonight. I think one comes out tonight. Isn't it Mondays?
I have no idea. Probably.
Yeah, maybe that's why though. So then that makes sense. Yeah, we haven't seen the more recent one, but yeah, that was a good episode, right? I actually felt like that one was pretty good. I thought that was better than the other one. At least they showed us things that like actually moved us along a little bit in terms of relationship. It's funny it came out the same week that they broke up.
Maybe who knows? Well, no, I don't think it was a planned breakup. It seems like it was kind of messy, but it's good timing
but it
for
could
the
have been
show.
A planned scene. Yeah, it could have been a planned scene because that could have happened anytime, and they plucked it and put it in that week. Yeah.
I don't know.
Producer antics. We see you.
Which
really is a good segue too. My second is that we have the 100 episodes, so we can use that as and we shall foray now into our awards. And I will say again to anybody who hasn't heard us before, our awards are 8 awards that ask questions about it's like superlatives, who was the most cringe, but each of the awards have the word test in it because we are reality tests after all. So you'll see things like protest this mess or doing the most tests, etc. Stick around, hear out who our awardees are going to be. Today we're just doing ones from the second half of Ultimatum Queer Lab Season 2. And quick note, we're not your therapist, other than my one client shout out. We're not your therapist, and we are not the therapist of those on the show. So we might seem like we have an idea about somebody's mental health, but we really have no clue. We're just looking around at some ideas, so for us, noodling on them. So that'll do. With that in mind, tell me, dear Dr. Ray, to whom on Queer Love Season 2 did you give Protest This Mess award to? This is who you think is doing something obnoxious. This is the one where it's like the drunkest, saddest, or most obnoxious moment or castmate.
So for me, I talked about this a little bit last week, but like Mel lying to Marie that they had sex was such a lie. And then she did the whole thing where she was like, it's a lie of admission. No, it wasn't. Y'all were coming, and no one I know comes from making out. And if they are, like, good for you. That's awesome. Yeah. No shame in your game, but I wouldn't say it's a common experience. So that's sex, in my opinion. Yeah. And so Mel was very unfair to Marie, and it was kind of just heartbreaking to see. The other thing that I said last week was the Kyle and Pilar thing, where Kyle was kind of making it seem like Pilar kissed her in a way that was non-consensual. And it just was totally misrepresenting what happened and misrepresenting all of the things that had happened before that and leaving out so much context. And I think Pilar then called her on that. And I think Kyle changed her tune, which I'm glad for, because that would have been really unfair, in my opinion.
Totally agree. Really, really good ones. And I think both of them also like tie into the second part of the show because they also have to do with the reunion. So like they both come back as well and we talk about it more, particularly the one, although also with Kyle in the second part, she talks to Bridget about it too, which is actually pretty interesting how that conversation goes. But I was going to say, so the funniest thing is, and leave it to our 100th episode area. This will be the first time ever we both had the exact same one for protest this match.
Yay!
I also had Mel, specifically Mel straight lying to Marie. That's the first sentence. It says, I don't care who you are, that was a lie. Even if Mel doesn't qualify what was happening at sex, she absolutely knew that that's what Maria was referring to. I mean, Marie. I caught you, Maria. That's what Marie was referring to, and that Marie would want to know that. Of course she knows that. So that therefore means that you are lying. It doesn't matter what is happening because you didn't want it to be disruptive to what's going on. So even as, for example, Marie said to her, don't make me look like a fool. Like, don't make me regret this when I watch this back. So I guess we learn in that moment that Mel planned to like break up with Marie before the next season came out, because what else are you going to do? You have to know that she's going to be like, dude, the one thing I asked you not to do. So sure enough, by the reunion, they are broken up, because everyone here has seen the second half, no. By the reunion, they are broken up. And sure enough, like the other piece that's tough that I protest about Mel straight lied to her. But also, did you notice how little language Mel uses? They just like no, or like nod or whatever. And so the same thing kind of comes up in the reunion where they just don't say anything if they can help it.
I found that to be a very frustrating episode, that reunion. I felt that nothing got resolved. It was like the Blue Balls reunion of the century. Like, I just didn't feel, that's probably a weird way to say it, but speaking of sex, but it was like, I wanted people to get into shit, and it didn't seem like they were, which maybe, and it, again, like you brought up last week, maybe if there was like a queer host, you didn't say this in particular, but you brought up how it would be nice if the show had a queer host, and I agree. But maybe someone in the community in some way would be able to take folks to task a little more than that host was. Yeah,
great point. These are one of those moments where it's like, for I forget her name, but the host, for her sitting there like sort of calling her out on that behavior, make her feel uncomfortable. Like, people could say that that's just how it works with lesbians sometimes. One talk more the other. She doesn't know what the dynamics are that she could get called out for, so she might be imagining a bunch that wouldn't really actually happen, and so therefore she like kind of I don't want to say chickens out, but like sort of like ends up trying to protect herself, which makes sense too.
Yeah.
It's not good for the show. It's not good for what we want to see with the show. It's not what we're trying to look for, like some real, held to task, held to accountability, held accountable, so that we can all learn from it better.
And I saw one thing that said, like, look at these women not making each other the villain in the reunion. And it's like, that's great. We don't want to villainize people, but we want to, like, in not going places, in my opinion, it makes the show complicit in the behaviors that happen that were not okay, that warranted further discussion. So I think, yes, good to not villainize people, but there's like a middle ground there of like some things needed to be said, and some apologies needed to happen, some true apologies and some genuine conversations. And I feel like the only one who came to play was Marie, and then everyone else was just not. And it was unfortunate.
Because Marita too, kind of like Marita too, but Marita was just like vitriolic. Where is that coming from? What's happening? Like, that wasn't really playing. That was like overplaying your hand, kind of, or something. But yeah, Marie really came to play. I totally agree. I love that.
And Marita was like, I don't care that your grandmother is dead, which it's not funny. That's not at all. But it was just such a weird out of pocket thing to say. It was like, what the fuck?
Fucking out of pocket. So out of pocket. Like, sit the fuck down, Marita. Like, oh my god.
Right.
That is so hurtful and horrifying. Yeah. Wow, so true. But yeah, I totally agree. There's a difference between, what that reminds me of is our conversation in regards to Love Island at the end there, from the episode that we titled something and cancel culture. Cancel culture, public apologies, yada yada. So we talked about that because we talked about how cancel culture at its most extreme is very unhelpful and shaming and blaming, and totally actually can be very harmful. But then no cancel culture is also the reality we lived before cancel culture was developed by Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter, which meant that people weren't being held accountable at all when they would do some really fucked up things. And so having somewhere in the middle where we can hold each other accountable for our behaviors, not attack the people as people, but the behaviors, so we can all learn from it and move on, that is the ideal place we could go, which is just like what you're saying here too. They didn't need to be vitriolic to each other. Like I think that's really how Marita shows, right? Like, Marita shows the extreme that we don't want either. We don't want Mel's lack of conversation completely. We don't want Marita's vitriolic stuff. But we want like a Marie. We want someone who's like ready to go, ready to talk about it, ready to own things, ready to call others out on things. I don't think she owned a whole lot, but she seemed like if she needed to, she might have. But she was at least in the conversation and creating some good, juicy combos.
She was present and like ready to go. She was not where I think everyone else was maybe thinking about their image or something. So
exactly. Good. Good one. Go us. We had a good one there.
Go us. Yay us. But so what about the doing the MosTEST? Who was the most cringe or embarrassing this week or this season?
This season. I gave it to so in the second half I gave it to Dana and Megan's whole fight, which was like major cringe. So both the way that both of them talked about it to other people and those people talked about it to each other and like that was messy. But the real part was from the second half because it was when, for example, Megan says, "I can't believe I was going to marry you," with such like disdain and contempt. So we definitely knew right then they're not destined for greatness. Like this is going nowhere. The way that she said that was so gross and like under your skin, like ripping, not even just like crawling. Like it just was really bad. And I also felt like Megan going so fast against Haley was also really off-putting and cringy. So I felt like Megan really won for me the like doing the most tests for the second half because I really liked Megan too. I liked her a lot in the first half of it. I really liked parts of her in the second half, but most of it was just really like cringe, like pretty awful, mean stuff being said and just like going against her word and so not for me.
Yeah, and turning on Haley when it suited her. She seems like a very kind of Dana, I think, even said it at one point. She's like, once you're certain about something, you're certain. And it seemed like that played out in their dynamic where she changed her mind and then it was like full steam ahead. It's like, whoa, you got to slow down, girl.
Yeah, right. Like when Dana called and said what she said. I mean, that was the other thing is like, you could tell that what Dana said the conversation was like wasn't what it was like. You could tell that it wasn't that Megan was just like, I'm leaving you forever, goodbye. That clearly Dana said some things that were like not the right way to go about that. And it was helpful during the reunion when Megan brought up, like, she's never said that to me. It's not like she says that to me when she's upset. Like, she's never said that. So I had no idea. I thought she really meant like goodbye. So I get that. I think that's an important part of context that was left out intentionally. And then I also think, Megan left some things to be desired too. But yeah, even that part was just really awful. Like what she was saying was said and then wasn't said. And then, that was really tough. And it just reminded me so much of the attachment style stuff that's important. But then you were saying something else, which I was just picking up on and immediately forgot. So fuck it. But yeah, that's a great one.
Me too.
No, it was mine. That was a great one I had.
Great one. It was very good. You deserve all the flowers.
Thank you so much. Thank you for my flowers. Thank you, self, as well. That's great. Thank you. Your turn. What was doing the most test? Yeah.
Mine is a little more silly. It was AJ continuing to talk about herself in the third person. It's just, it's always so silly. Funny. And then it was called out, and then she did it again, and I was like, I'm sure she'll stop. Yeah, I'm sure she'll stop doing that after this. It's a funny trait when people have that trait. It was just a little cringe. And like I say that in a loving way. I think AJ seems like a really nice person who gets really excited.
Yeah, totally. I'm like really passionate in a way that's contagious. I would also say there was a part of me that was wondering, like, how much of that might be related to the potential for a transition. Like, I'm not saying that AJ is transitioning or is, gender non-binary, but if they had been playing with the idea, or if they changed their name, like, did they always go by AJ? My guess would be probably not, but they might have. And so there might be a way that, like, the third personing that they're doing to themselves is actually, like, sort of a product of the process of sort of seeing themselves as someone other than how they grew up because they don't feel like they are that person. And so it's sort of like restoring who AJ is. And so say they're in therapy with somebody who's saying, like, so tell me who AJ is. Like, what does AJ do? Like, what does AJ do? That could sort of form as a result of that, which I think is cool.
Oh, I like that. That's kind of sweet.
Yeah, it'd be a cool outcome. I mean, it's very cute what she does anyway, but that would be cool if that's what it's an outcome of for her sake.
Oh,
and maybe they're fake, but we don't know.
Yeah.
Netflix isn't telling us their pronouns. Don't know.
Sure aren't.
Sure aren't telling us. Sure aren't. Okay, so now, by the way, I remember what I was going to say, which was that,
estimation. I really liked him before. I'm not really feeling that way at this juncture, unfortunately.
I know. I think he's too boring. I think he doesn't ask enough questions. And he isn't as romantic. He's not romantic enough.
No. It's a shame, but yeah. But we'll see. I haven't watched in a few weeks, though. I'll have to get caught up before we start back up again.
Perfect. Yeah. So that's what we'll do in a few weeks. So come on back. And you, in the meantime, can find us on patreon.com/realitytest, capital R, capital T. You can also search it in the search bar on Reality Test at Reality Test. I mean, at patreon.com by searching the at symbol Reality Test in our search bar. Otherwise, you won't find us for any weird reason. I don't know what it is. Then the other things you can do is find us on Instagram at Dr. K Pod, that's me, at Dr. Ray Pod, that's Dr. Ray. You can find us on TikTok at drdr.realitytv. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Reality Test Pod, all one word after the at symbol for YouTube channel and different words for Facebook page. And then we also are on Gmail, so you can Gmail us at realitycheck, not test, but check podding, PODDING, at gmail.com. Come say hi, tell us some things, we'll talk to you about whatever, and create a good feedback loop. You can help give us feedback if you'd like, just like the client with whom I work, who was so kind to share the feedback that they did. So thank you all for that.
Thank you so much. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and to throw a few bucks our way if you so choose. It would be nice. Please and thank you.
If you have the funds, exactly. And also tell all your friends in the meantime. And also tell them there's 101 episodes out, and they have 3 weeks to catch up on it before we start recording again. Great time to catch up. So you actually, by the way, don't have access to all 101 because a number of them are in our archive. So you have to join Patreon to hear our archive anyway. So come hang out with us there. And you can also buy access to the archive, and then you can also, instead of the whole membership, and you could also buy a specific video episode if you'd rather do that than joining as a member. So there's options for getting involved a little bit. Anyway, what a joy these 101 episodes have been. Much love to you all. Much love to dear Dr. Ray. And we will see you next time.
Much love. Bye.
Bye, friends.